afternoon. As you can see, we're back in school. You may be surprised to know that I don't normally wear a staff lanyard and a tie when I'm in my home. We're back in school. We've got about 30 pupils back in school now, and it's been really lovely to see them. And I've been particularly asked to mention our Year 11 pupils, who of course are not returning to school. But we do miss you, Year 11. We see some of you from time to time and hear from you, I should say. And I hope things are going well in this very strange end to your academic year. So not much for me today because it's business as usual next week. And by that I mean that the same group of pupils that we've had in this week will continue to be in next week. So just refer back to last week's letter if you're not sure, but briefly it will be the children of key workers. It will be those children who are deemed vulnerable as far as the government is concerned. And it will be that group of children who we have contacted in the course of the last few weeks to ask them to come into school because for one reason or another they're struggling a little bit to get things sorted in the home learning environment. As I said in my letter last week, unless your children are in one of those three groups, then please don't send them into school at this stage. The definition of key worker hasn't changed. And so we will only be able to accommodate the children of key workers as defined by the government's guidance. In short, if you haven't been sending your children into school this week and you haven't been contacted by someone this week to invite your children into school, please for next week don't bring them into school. If for some reason you do need them to come into school and they're outside of those groups, please do get in touch with us first so we can sort things out. But as I said, we can't take the children of anything other than key workers, the very small number of pupils who we've contacted in the course of the week. Now, I thought it would be reassuring for you to know a few more things about the risk mitigations that we've put into place to ensure that when people do return to school, both staff and pupils, that they can do so safely. So with the help of Mr. Inslee, we're going to go for a quick walk around the school and we're going to have a little look at some of the things that are in place to keep everybody safe. So I thought I'd take some time to show you around the school and so you can see some of the measures that we've put in place to keep everybody safe as we invite more pupils and more staff back into school. So come into reception with me. First of all, signage everywhere to remind mainly the pupils of some of the key messages about keeping everybody safe. And then if you come over to the sign-in desk, you'll notice that the sign-in forms, screens have been changed so that all you need to do now is waft your card in front of the camera. You don't actually need to tap them. That reduces the amount of contamination risk. In reception and in all the classrooms there is alcohol-based wipes, hand gel, which you'll see as we walk around, is available too. And you'll notice straight away as we go into the rest of the school, 2-metre markings on the floor which are designed to remind everybody, staff and pupils, of the need to keep socially distant. So if you come this way, you'll see a one-way system is in place. There are arrows everywhere reminding us where to go. So we'll start to follow the arrows on the floor, which takes us to the first classroom that's in use at the moment. Some pupils working in a socially distant way in the classroom at the moment. We've got enough IT facilities that we can rearrange so that everybody who will be in school at any one time, and that would only ever be a maximum of probably 50, 60 pupils, that we can easily accommodate them to be able to use IT and therefore access their remote learning in a way which is socially distant. And you'll also notice in every classroom that's in use, hand sanitisers which can be used on the way into and on the way out of the classroom. So we're following the one-way system. As you can see, plenty of signage reminding the pupils repeatedly of how things should work. And ironically, given this is the first time it's rained for about 2 months, we're going to go outside now in the middle of a storm. I know, we're okay, it's stopped. Only a few classrooms are in operation, so some of them we won't be using at all. Those that we are using, we've made sure that we can fit the 6 pupils. 6 will be the maximum in each room, that we can fit them in safely. So obviously we're now at the part of the school where the children would congregate when they first arrive. They'll arrive in the bus bay if they drive into school, or if they come in school transport, or they'll come through the hub. So that's exactly as usual. But when they arrive in school, they'll come onto the school playground, and then we put them in their groups in this area to make sure that they are distant from one another. We brief them with the rules. We talk about hand hygiene, we talk about keeping distance, and how that needs to be adhered to in the course of the day. And they, following the one-way system, so as normal, they're not allowed to enter here. Following the one-way system, they then enter school. So as I say, pupils will come in the normal way. They'll come through here, and they're supervised as they do so, because they make sure that they keep their distance and make sure that they do follow the one-way system. Then obviously we're into the main corridor of the school. Hand sanitizer available at all times, and signage to remind them that they need to make use of it. You'll notice that the corridor, the 2 metre restrictions are really clear, and that's obviously because this is also the area where pupils will be queuing as they queue for their lunch in the canteen. As we walk on up the corridor, you'll see as well restrictions on the usage of the toilets. So we only left 2 children in at any one time, in order to, again, to make sure the distance is there. That's both in terms of using the toilets and just using them for hand washing, in order to prepare for the day. This, the old girls' toilet is now being used just as a hand washing station. So in terms of lunch arrangements, the pupils will queue up here as they normally do, but rather than queuing at the blue doors and then moving on, they'll just queue all the way around behind a line each time. They'll follow the arrows round, and then you can see that they'll continue to the canteen, pick up their food in the normal way. They'll pay, but they're not going to pay using their fingerprint anymore, because obviously that's a contact point which we can avoid. So we're working on a system that enables them to have a card which they just put near the card reader, and that should be in place in the next couple of days. Once they've got their food, they're then coming round and they're following back out onto one of the tables, and you'll see that in the tables there's only one chair per table. The tables are spaced out. Now clearly that puts restrictions on the number of children that can be eating at any one time, so whenever possible we use the outside space, but that does mean that they can eat in a way which is distant from one another. So 2 last things, one about cleaning and one about first aid. First of all of the contact surfaces, so things like door handles, stair banisters and so on, they're being cleaned regularly throughout the day. Because the children are being kept in a particular bubble, in one particular group in the same classroom throughout the day, it's not necessary to clean repeatedly throughout the day, but they are cleaned at the end of each day in a manner and using chemicals which are particularly good at ensuring that the infection is kept to an absolute minimum. So cleaning takes place throughout the day. The other thing to talk about is first aid. We've got the normal first aid is taking place, the normal first aiders, but we also have a COVID first aid protocol in place, which is a member of staff and me will go to pick up a pupil from a room if there is any risk of COVID, take them to an isolation room, which is actually the room opposite the pastoral office, and there they will be looked after by staff with appropriate PPE. The reason we're using those rooms is because we can then isolate them from the rest of the school, and then we can take them out of the school without having to pass through the rest of the school. So all in all, I hope you can see that there's an awful lot taking place. Also, I can tell you now what the arrangements will be from June the 15th onwards. Effectively, we're adding a 4th group to the pupils who will be able to come in, and those will be Year 10 pupils. We are under quite a lot of restrictions though. We're not allowed to have more than 25% of any year group in school at any one time, and so the numbers of Year 10 pupils we can get in is relatively small. We obviously really want to make sure as well that we don't do anything that impacts upon the provision of learning for everybody who is not in school. And that means making sure that teaching staff are as free as possible to continue delivering the remote learning that we've been doing over the last couple of months. So what will happen is a small selection of pupils will be invited into school, probably about 12 to 15 pupils a day. And they will have, in the course of that day, a 20-minute, 30-minute tutorial session with a member of the senior leadership team. For the rest of their time, they'll be continuing to do the same kind of remote learning that they're doing at home at the moment. We've got plenty of IT facilities in the school, and there's plenty of opportunities for them to continue doing the live learning, continue doing the remote learning, and to do that in a way which is safely distant from their peers. So those pupils will be invited in the course of next week. We will be contacting the first group of pupils that we want to see. We're going to start with those pupils that we know are struggling in one way or another to make the most of the online learning experiences. But we do hope to see everybody in the course of the last 3-4 weeks of this term. If you could just note, please, that when pupils do come into school, they will be required to come into school wearing their normal school uniform. They'll be in for the whole day, so catering can be provided. But as I said last week, if they are able to bring sandwiches and a drink with them, that would obviously reduce the amount of possibility of cross-contamination when people are lining up for dinner and so on. In the course of next week, we'll be sending out a brief survey to the parents of children in Year 10 just to check a few of the details and to get an indication of how many of you are able to bring your children into school. There are 2 factors that might determine whether or not you can. One is obviously your own personal health situations and that of your families, and the other is the transport situation. There will, we have been assured, be transport available from June the 15th for those pupils who normally have school transport to come into school. But I think it's probably reasonable to say that that might be a little patchy, and therefore if you are able to bring your children into school yourselves, that might make things a little easier. On that, by the way, for everybody, could you please remember to drop your children off at the bus bay? That enables us to control the flow of pupils coming in and out of the school in a much safer way.
Henley-in-Arden School, achieving excellence together.